Wow, man. That was a very exciting episode of SmackDown and a very good draft. I definitely enjoyed the draft. It was very good. So before we run down what happened on the show, I think it's best if we start off with the draft. Who was drafted where? And I'll give you guys my thoughts on each one. So we have round one. Fight! Nah, I'm kidding. Nice Tekken reference there. But we got round one. The first two picks were quite the most obvious ones of them all. Drew McIntyre drafted to Monday nights as WWE Champion, and Roman Reigns drafted to SmackDown as the Universal Champion. Makes sense. I don't really have any thoughts or opinions on it. Just makes sense. Asuka was drafted to Raw as the Raw Women's Champion, which it makes sense because why would you draft the Raw Women's Champion to SmackDown? I think I'm about to eat my words. I'm very sure about that. But anyway, the next pick in round one was the biggest shock of them all, and one we've been wanting for a long time, and that is Seth Rollins. He has been drafted to SmackDown at long last. At long last, Seth Rollins is on SmackDown for the first time in his career. He has always been a part of Raw since 2016, so it's great to see him finally on a new show. Fresh, it's going to be a fresh beginning for our Messiah. But he's not going to be called the Monday Night Messiah anymore. According to what he said in an interview, he's calling himself the SmackDown Savior. The Friday Night Savior, I guess. Friday Night Messiah? Doesn't matter. But he calls himself the SmackDown Savior, apparently. So I guess his Tron thing is going to change to SmackDown Savior. But we'll see. And the final round one pick was the Hurt Business to Monday Nights. So there you go. The streak of mid-card championships comes to an end because every single draft, the mid-card belts have changed. So this is the first time that the mid-card championships will be staying on their current shows. So Sami Zayn will remain on SmackDown with the Intercontinental Championship. But he won't be drafted until night 2. So, but it is safe to assume he stays with SmackDown. So now we come to round 2. Round 2 was AJ Styles. He's been drafted to Monday Nights. Makes sense because he's not a big fan of Paul Heyman. I know he doesn't really like Paul Heyman. And I think AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre as a feud for the WWE Championship would be pretty fun. I think that would be pretty fun if you ask me. And the second pick for SmackDown was the Boss, Sasha Banks. Makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense for Sasha Banks to stay on SmackDown, unlike all those other blithering idiots that thought Sasha Banks going to SmackDown made the most sense. Seriously, if you're a person and you tell me Sasha Banks should have been drafted to Raw, your opinion is invalid to me. It makes total sense for Sasha Banks to be on SmackDown. Doesn't make total sense. It doesn't make sense for her to move to Monday Night Raw. What? Just because people want this match to happen at WrestleMania? The match isn't gonna happen at WrestleMania. When will people get it through their heads that that WWE isn't gonna book Sasha versus Bayley all the way to WrestleMania? They've been booking this for the past 7 months since WrestleMania this year. Since WrestleMania this year, they have been booking this feud. They have been booking they've been teasing the build-up to these two breaking up and eventually having their feud. Doesn't make sense to send Sasha Banks to Raw. Never has, and it never will. It would only make sense if she wasn't feuding with Bayley. Because she is feuding with Bayley. Makes sense for her to stay on SmackDown, right? Ding dong! Idiots. Seriously. Monday Night Raw, they ended up getting Naomi. I don't agree with this one. This one I'm not a fan of. sending Naomi to Raw isn't exactly ideal. She ain't gonna get anywhere on Raw. The first time she was on Raw, she got nowhere. The first time they drafted her to Raw, it went nowhere for her. What good will it do sending her to Raw now? You split her away from the Usos? Stupid. Absolutely stupid. The Usos are on SmackDown. You should not be drafting her away from the Usos. But I guess we should be happy in the end because SmackDown ended up getting Bianca Belair in return. Bianca Belair, I'm not her biggest fan, but I was very excited to see her come to SmackDown because I think she'll be a good pick. Now, that is your WrestleMania match. That right there should be your WrestleMania match. Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. That is your WrestleMania 37? Yeah, 37. I was about to say 36. We just did 36. That's your WrestleMania 37 match. Sasha versus Belair. Also, I want to make things real quick here. With Seth Rollins being drafted to SmackDown, that also means Becky Lynch could potentially be on SmackDown as well. Now after what we saw what happened with Bayley in her match with Sasha, that makes Sasha, Bayley, and Becky all on SmackDown. There's only one more horsewoman that hasn't been drafted to SmackDown. You know who I'm talking about. If WWE can draft Charlotte Flair to SmackDown, we'll have all 4 horsewomen on one show. Now, to me, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. I think that would be awesome. I think that'd be a great idea. Having all 4 members on one show. And then you can have all like the younger, then you can have like all those other younger kind of girls on Raw, kind of grinding for an opportunity. So yeah. So I say Becky Lynch is technically now on SmackDown. But I guess we won't know until she comes back. But with Seth Rollins being on SmackDown, it kind of confirms that, does confirm that Becky will be on SmackDown. So that's cool. I think that's really cool. So yeah, Bianca is now on SmackDown. Good job. And then the final round 2 pick was Shayna and Nia Jax. Good. They can stay on Raw. For all I care, they can bury everyone on Raw all they want. I don't really care much about Raw, considering that SmackDown is getting a lot of the people. So round 3, Raw ended up drafting Ricochet. This one I don't agree with. I really wanted to see Ricochet on SmackDown. Ricochet would just be so much better on SmackDown. There was no reason to keep Ricochet on Raw. But hey, I may have liked some of the stuff in the draft, but I guess at the end of the day, we can't always get what we want. And that's the big key thing there. What are you going to keep Ricochet on Raw for? To have another 100 matches with the Hurt Business? Jey Uso was drafted to SmackDown. You see, this is the thing I was telling you about. Why send Naomi to Raw? Jimmy Uso is most likely going to be drafted to SmackDown when he comes back. What makes sense? It doesn't make sense to split the Usos away from Naomi. It just doesn't. I'm sorry, it just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. Mandy Rose was drafted to Raw. She was already on Raw anyway, so why did you even bother? And of course, when Seth Rollins was drafted to SmackDown, I had a feeling they were going to be drafted to SmackDown as well. That was Dominic and Rey Mysterio. So there you go. Now we got to deal with Aaliyah and her little storyline with Murphy on SmackDown now. Murphy wasn't drafted to SmackDown in the draft pool, but I'm very sure he will end up getting drafted to SmackDown on Talking Smack, because they said Talking Smack is going to reveal the rest of the draftees. So let me guess. Humberto Carrillo is going to be drafted to SmackDown. I guess Humberto Carrillo is destined to be on SmackDown now because that's Dominic's tag team partner. So Dominic and Murphy are most likely going to be on SmackDown because of this. When I said I wanted Seth Rollins and Murphy on SmackDown, I didn't want the Mysterio family to be a part of it too. I guess we got to tolerate this storyline on SmackDown now. Raw got... Okay, this one made me laugh. This one made me laugh. Monday Night Raw ended up getting The Miz and John Morrison. Hey Miz, your attempt to split Mandy away from Otis kind of backfired on you, buddy. Now you're on Raw. And the streak continues for The Miz. Drafted to SmackDown in 2016. Drafted to Raw in 2017. Drafted to SmackDown in 2018. Drafted to Raw in 2019. Drafted to SmackDown in 2020. And drafted to Raw again this year. The streak continues for The Miz. He continues to get drafted every single year. Guarantee you, 2021, I guarantee you in 2021, he'll be back on the blue brand. We'll be sitting here once again talking about the 2021 draft, and we'll be hearing The Miz's name being shouted for SmackDown. I bet The Miz probably likes it. I bet The Miz likes being drafted to every single show each year. So it looks like Hey, Ho Ho are now on Raw. Can't wait for our Mandy Rose to slap Miz in the face, considering how Miz's plan backfired on him. Now we got the big shocker. So you know how I said I was just going to do the draft picks and then talk about the show later, but I feel like this one, it gets the exception here, because this was a really big shocker here. So what happened here is that we had the New Day return. Kofi and Xavier made their return. Because Big E beat Sheamus in a Falls Count Anywhere match. That was pretty fun. And so what happened is that Kofi and Xavier got a SmackDown Tag Team title opportunity against Cesaro and Nakamura, which by that point I knew who were winning. So New Day ended up winning the SmackDown Tag Team titles. And then Stephanie McMahon came out and she made the announcement that Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods would get drafted to Raw. Just Kofi and Xavier. And then she ends up announcing that Big E remains on SmackDown. After 6 long years, the New Day are no longer together. 6 years. 6 long years, and the New Day have officially broken up. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the New Day should never really break up. But if you were going to split the New Day up, this was probably going to be the only way you would ever do it. To me, this would be the only way you would do it. Splitting them up due to a draft. So, yeah. You know how I said before that you wouldn't draft your Raw Women's Champion like Asuka to SmackDown? Well, we just got that here. We had Kofi and Xavier win the SmackDown Tag Team titles, and you draft them to Raw. Huh. Well, I guess I'm a fool then. I guess I'm a fool for thinking that WWE wouldn't draft a team that has a title that's simply called SmackDown Tag Team titles to Monday Night Raw. So what do I think WWE will do here? Well, I've got 2 options. I've got 2 options that you could do here. Option number 1 is that you have Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro invoke their rematch clause on Raw. Because, you know, rematches are a thing now, so, you know, rematches are a thing. You could either have Cesaro and Nakamura get a rematch on Raw for the titles, and you have Cesaro and Nakamura win them back. Or, you do New Day versus Street Profits in a unification, where you unify both tag team titles, and winning team gets to be called the Undisputed Tag Team Champions. But really, they shouldn't really have... But really, you don't need to do that. Because here's the thing. Like, unifying the titles, I think, could work. Because, you know, you keep bloody splitting up tag teams. But the thing that I don't understand is, if WWE were always going to move Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods to Raw, then why did you have them win the SmackDown Tag Team titles? You could have had Cesaro and Nakamura get themselves disqualified. Kind of like what happened with Bayley earlier. But no, I guess you can't have two DQ finishes. So, they really could have easily just had Cesaro and Nakamura retain, but no, they didn't. So it should be interesting to see what they do. I think they'll go with the unification. I think they'll do the unification where they just have New Day versus Street Profits. Or they'll just have Rude and Ziggler face Street Profits and Rude and Ziggler beat them. I don't know. We'll see what they do with it. I'm kind of leaning towards the unification, though. And the final three picks was Dana Brooke to Monday Nights, Otis remaining on SmackDown, while Angel Garza remains on Raw. So, after the Night 1 draft pool, the wrestlers that were not drafted in the Night 1 draft pool was Drew Gulak, Humberto Carrillo, the Lucha House Party, Mickie James, Murphy, Chad Gable, and Tucker. So I think Drew Gulak will end up on Raw. I'm going to make a guess on where I think these superstars are going to end up. Drew Gulak will end up on Raw with the whole 24/7 title nonsense. Humberto Carrillo will get drafted to SmackDown because of the Mysterio shit. Lucha House Party, I reckon they'll get sent to Raw. More tag teams. Mickie James, I reckon, will get sent to Raw. Murphy will get drafted to SmackDown. Chad Gable will be drafted to Raw. And Tucker will be sent to SmackDown, keeping him and Otis together. So there you go. Those are my opinions on where I think those superstars will end up. So yeah, that was your draft. That was your Night 1 draft. I enjoyed it. I didn't like a couple of the picks, but, you know, can't like them all. So anyway, we had Big E and Sheamus face each other in a Falls Count Anywhere match to start off the show. Really fun match. I did enjoy this. Big E got the win with a big ending off a car through a table, which was a very unique ending. So that was pretty cool. We had Jeff Hardy and the barefoot bum, Matt Riddle, face off against Miz and Morrison. And Jeff Hardy and Matt Riddle end up winning. And then we had the return of Lars Sullivan, who we haven't seen for over a year. We haven't seen this man for over a year. So it's interesting. So that's interesting to see Lars Sullivan. And Lars Sullivan was on the list of superstars that were not going to be drafted. But now that he's back, now he is added. So now he did get added. So we'll see what happens with Lars Sullivan, the big fat bum, as I call him, the bigger bum. So we had Sasha Banks versus Bayley for the title. This was a pretty short match. Bayley got herself disqualified as quickly as possible. And it led to Sasha Banks going on a bit of a rampage, smacking Bayley with the chair, excuse me. And then later on in the show, Sasha Banks challenged Bayley to a Hell in a Cell match, which made total sense. Instead of drafting her to Raw. Idiots. As I mentioned before, the New Day won the tag team titles, so I'm going to skip over this. We had Otis backstage with Tucker, talking about his court case with The Miz. But also, there'll be one more thing I'll talk about before we talk about the main event, and that is Jey Uso, and Roman Reigns. We had Jey Uso come to the ring. He wanted to talk to Roman, but, you know, typical Roman, didn't want to show up. Paul Heyman, you know, was on the bloody Titantron, flapping his gums like he always does. And then Roman Reigns would challenge Jey Uso, not only that they're going to face each other inside Hell in a Cell, they are going to have an I Quit match. No joke, they are having an I Quit match inside of a Hell in a Cell structure. That is sick. A Hell in a Cell I Quit match. That is sick and that is cool. I love that idea. And if you're going to ask me what would my favorite stipulation be, it's an I Quit match. I love I Quit matches. The fact that you're putting an I Quit match inside a Hell in a Cell, that is an incredible idea. I love that a lot. I like that a lot. And I think that'd be really damn cool. So yeah, I really am looking forward to that. That should be really cool to see what they do with that. And then finally we had the main event. That is The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. He was faced off against Kevin Owens. I was quite surprised this was the main event. But I guess if you're going to have The Fiend make his first ever match on Smackdown, and it could be his last, this very well could be his last. This could be why they had him wrestle on Smackdown. Because I heard Bray Wyatt could be drafted to Raw. So we'll see what happens before we jump to conclusions. So we had The Fiend face Kevin Owens. I don't really like Bray Wyatt's matches. I'm going to say that he no-sells all the time. You know, I remember people getting mad at Charlotte Flair for no-selling. But The Fiend, he, like, no-sells all of his moves. Like, all the moves. Like, he just gets right back up. Like, he no-sells all the time. Like, I get he's supposed to be some kind of freak of nature. But I know he's supposed to be some kind of freak of nature that you can't put down. But the fact that Goldberg put him down with just 3 spears and a jackhammer, and then you see the rest of these superstars like hit The Fiend with their best shot, and then he just whoop, right back up to his feet in like 5 seconds. I just can't. It's just ridiculous. But The Fiend ended up winning. He ended up defeating Kevin Owens, and I think Kevin Owens is going to turn heel. Because as they say, every time you get touched by The Fiend, you are a changed man. So I'm expecting Kevin Owens to turn heel, or Kevin Owens just becomes more of a... Maybe he becomes more of an aggressive babyface. Maybe he becomes just more aggressive as a babyface. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Kevin Owens after his defeat. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is the draft. That is the Night 1 draft. And I must say, I thought it was very successful. The fact that we got Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair on the same brand makes me very, very excited to see the potential matches that they could have. Not just Bianca versus Sasha. Like, we could have Bianca versus Bayley as well. So, we'll see. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit that thumbs up. Comment your opinions down below. And I will see you all next time.